All right, welcome everyone to another Thursday night. I thought about taking questions tonight simply because I like to hear where your mind is in your practice, and I like to be able to help in any way very specifically. And you'd be surprised, you come up with a question, how helpful it is to others, whether it's right here, people here, or those who watch the recording. So it's actually good to freely express what you're thinking, what your questions are about, whether it's the art or how to apply it in your life, or even how to do something that we're doing. Maybe you're struggling with something. So we try to stick towards the philosophical side in the meditation classes. And just remember, my answers are my answers. It's very important that, nothing I say is etched in stone. I always reserve the right to change my mind as information or knowledge penetrates my thick head. I am more than happy to change my perspective. It is primarily an East Asian Taoist type of perspective that I've developed through my life. And so I try to keep my answers very much from that place. That said, you always have to come up with your own answers and your own beliefs, your own perspective based on your experience. And I always like to be clear on, be aware of your sources. Get multiple opinions on things. Multiple opinions gives you some perspective. This person believes this so strongly, this person believes this so strongly. What speaks to you in your heart? Some people are very persuasive in their presentation, and then you believe them. So I've personally been more of a rebel. I don't like to believe anybody. It's like, okay, they said this sounds good, sounds true. Would that work in my life? Would that work in most people's lives? And let me research the other side of that, what was said. So that's just been my way, and it served me well, in my opinion, in my experience. So questions. Let me hear what you guys have to say. You can raise your hand. I can I almost said undilute. I'm going to undilute you. No, I'm going to unmute you. Now, when you speak, you should come right on the screen. Are you talking?
Oh, okay.
There
I didn't know
goes.
if you wanted, okay, I'm up, I'm good. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't call your name. You see, when I click on your face, you're supposed to know that.
I wanted to make sure it wasn't an hack. Someone else is supposed to be going.
It's you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well, as you know, very well, I've been really struggling with one thing in particular, dragging back. And I know this is the story of my practice. And I also know I lost some time because of my sports injury that I had several years ago. But, and I know the concept behind the book, oh my goodness, the tennis book that, I can't remember.
The Inner Game of Tennis.
The Inner Game of Tennis. Thank you. That, when you get frustrated, you block your progress and it makes it harder, but even when I try to relax and just feel, and I know you say that, and even when I do it slowly, different, and not just that, but also with other things, some things have gotten better for sure. And I feel like my stepping has gotten a little better, and I'm doing certain things and I feel more comfortable, and I think my form is better. But, when it comes to certain things, my mind says, do this, and my body just fights me on it. And then of course I get more frustrated, and it's very difficult for me not to get into that, like in that book, A and B, with A's like, okay, just do it. Just let your body do it. And B's like, you suck. You can't, you've been working on this for how long? And Ignatius, you've been doing it over and over again for months, and you still suck. And then I'm like, then A is like, stop it. I'm trying to concentrate. It's very difficult. So I know that sounds like I'm crazy, but this is what happens a lot in my training. And at times I can just say, who cares? And often I'll just have to jump off and do something else, because it's almost like when I was a kid in school and you're working on a question on a test and you get stuck on it. And then I would end up, not doing the other questions. You run out of time. So I used to have to move on and just get past it, and then go back to that question. But I sometimes just have to say, the heck with it. I can't do it right now. I don't know when I'm going to get this. And then I don't even want to go back to it sometimes at another time, which I do. But so I kind of get stuck in that dilemma a lot of times, especially with what I'm working on right now. So.
Okay, so we've had you know, you and I have had a number of conversations about this, but in answering you and also something beneficial to the group, I want to go through the 5 ways to get what you came for. And this is sort of a branch off of almost saying the same thing as in the lessons of mindfulness, 7 ways to become a great martial artist. But that principle behind that is really how to be great at anything, to overcome anything, to accomplish anything. And so people come to martial arts for many different reasons. Some people it's the fantasy. It's really cool, you know. I hear recently people from years of watching Avatar, they see Bagua. You know, now all of a sudden I'm hearing people want Bagua, where for years people don't even know what style we're doing unless we keep hammering that home that this is Bagua and this is why it's Bagua. It's based on this ancient philosophy and principles of nature. It's a Taoist martial art. It has a lot of meaning behind it. People come for self-defense, right? They want to be able to fight. Maybe they were bullied as they grew up and they never overcame that. So they really want to be able to handle themselves and defend themselves. Other people are literally, they're understanding that it's for personal development. You know, it's like striving to be better. Maybe they read something or saw movies like The Karate Kid many years ago, and now they have the modern version, which is very fun too, many years later, a new generation. But that movie influenced so many people with the philosophies of Mr. Miyagi. You know, no matter the worst case, you know, they smash all his bonsai and he goes and grabs his fishing pole and walks out the door, right? That's the Taoist. You know, you can't get yourself too upset about things you can't change. I mean, you can, you certainly have the option, but it doesn't help anything. And so that's the wisdom of the Taoist, is recognizing when there's nothing you can do about it. And so what you really should do is center yourself first before you deal with it. Okay. Then some people come for just getting in shape and they're just sick of just lifting weights or going to the gym. They're bored with it. So they like to really get in shape while learning something practical, something useful. It's more interesting. You know, they always had a curiosity about it, but their main thing is really to be fit, maybe lose some weight and get in great shape. So, and there is one other one, I'll leave it for later. Hopefully I'll remember to get back to it. But that's the one that's it's been hard to understand for people, I think, but it's very important, really. But let me move on. The 5 ways. Okay, so to become great at anything, the first thing you've got to do, and Miss Anagnostis, you are, what can I say, very successful this way. You show up. And you deserve to look yourself in the mirror and know that you always showed up. For how many years? I mean, it's more than 10 years, right? Yeah, it's probably more than 10 years for you. That says a lot. How many people do you know have stuck with anything for 10 years or more? When I was first coming up, everybody starts in the beginning. You're a beginner and you don't know anything, and everything's difficult. You know, you try to do something and you suck at it. It's just understanding that. So you'll see people that are 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe more years ahead of you. And then you hang in there and you keep showing up. And you'll notice little by little, people drop off. They always drop off. And that's why I've always said, I will take the tortoise over the hare any day. The tortoise is the one that just keeps going forward little by little. It takes how long it takes, right? And the hare in the story is like all over the place, you know? It's like they get bored quick and they want to go do something else. So in the long run, through life, they lose because everything's superficial for them. For the tortoise, they really get that one success. And so they get it at a much deeper, more profound level. So you got to show up. You got to show up. You got to show up to your practice area. You got to show up to class. You got to show up here. And those who show up regularly are the ones who are going to be better than. They will be better than if they didn't show up. And that's the only way you can ever guarantee anything, really. Then what? You know, you show up, you got to try hard. You can't be lazy. You have to actually do the work. You have to sweat. You have to push yourself. You know, sometimes in our case, we walk the circle eventually, right? From yellow and above, we start walking the circle. And walking the circle, holding your arm in the dragon posture for so long, you're walking and your shoulders get tired. And so do you push through that, or do you just, oh, I'm tired, and then you're done, right? If you don't nudge yourself regularly, nudge your current ability, it's like the ceiling's here. You nudge it, make the ceiling higher. Your potential goes higher as you nudge against it. But you can certainly never reach it, and then the ceiling is going to come down to you. So you can get past your limitations and expand, or you can lower your limitations and contract. And we're always up against Father Time. And so if you're not expanding, you are literally dying. You have to grow every day. You have to push yourself every day. Mentally, physically, emotionally, even spiritually, you have to expand yourself. You have to be learning and growing every day. And if you're not challenging yourself and feeling uncomfortable about things and knowing you're not good at something that you keep pursuing anyway, you are literally coming down. You're getting worse. There's no staying the same. That is an example of a Bagua principle. It's what Bagua means. It's the principle of change. Everything is changing. There are cycles that seem to stay the same, but everything is always changing. That's a law. And that's why you're either growing or dying. You want everything to be the same, and it doesn't work like that. Right? So here's where the next step is that your question is more specific to. And that is, you've got to train right. So show up, train hard, train right. What is right? The beginner doesn't know what right is. You only can do to the best of your ability. And your understanding is very low when you're starting out. And from person to person, you can have a very, very different capability, very different coordination. So I never compare yourself to others. Some people learn quickly, some people learn slowly. But same example, tortoise and the hare, right? Those who learn quickly get bored quickly too. Those who things are a struggle to and they work their way through it, they've grown the most. They're going to have the most appreciation for what they've done. They're going to notice that they're a different person actually because of that growth. But for those who, when things get easy, this art, you got to realize what was it? I started a couple other arts that are related, like long fist. I teach the kids, right, in the early 80s, 84. So I think Bagua was 86. Maybe I started 87, something like that. I started actually learning Bagua forms, movements. So what are we now, 21? So 34 years. Okay, 34 years. I still struggle with it because I'm still learning about the art. Isn't that strange? There's things that I still do that I still feel like I suck at, right? And that's actually what I love about it, because it's still intriguing to me. It's still an amazing art, and I'm still trying to improve myself, even in my mid-50s now. It's less physical, more internal. It's getting another level of understanding of my body, and it's a new challenge. So training right has to be adjustable, and that's why you have a teacher. The teacher can see what you don't know. The teacher, through experience, can see what corrections you need. So I can tell you to record yourself, but early on, you don't know what's right and what's wrong. You could watch your teacher, you could watch yourself, and you can compare, and then you could try to be closer to your teacher. But I've also come across teachers that don't want to show you. They want you to get it on your own and go through the struggle. See, the teacher can show you and you can copy, and you probably would learn faster, but faster is not always better. Going through the struggle and recognizing what's right and wrong for yourself is actually related to the inner game of tennis, because your body knows the answer, that this way works better. But training right, there's two components to it. The better you get at training, the more perfect the practice, the faster your progress. So train right is faster progress. Train right is also going to help you eliminate injuries. And that's an example where I didn't always have a teacher who understood or bothered to correct those kind of things. You know, you have to have an understanding. My background, I have body mechanics, biomechanical, like how do you move, background naturally through kinesiology, exercise physiology. Like you learn how the body works right. And then you apply that in the martial art, and little things like how to save your knees or your back or your shoulder is something that came through years of experience. And a teacher could be a master of the martial art, but doesn't understand those kind of mechanics, right? They may naturally move well with a lot of power, with a lot of speed, but they may not understand biomechanics for every student to be corrected properly. And so I experienced a lot of different injuries, and I'm one that wants to give the best to the student so I can save you from injuries because of the ones that I overcame through learning why I got the injury. If I don't know why I got the injury, I don't know how to fix somebody else. So it's very common in people to practice power, fudging, those kind of exercises, and ruin, or martial arts in general, practicing extreme. Like it's very common for Taekwondo practitioners to end up with new hips, judo practitioners to end up with new knees, meaning a replacement as they get older. Karate people to be so arthritic that they can't even use their hands from all the breaking physical things, right? So physical, they destroy themselves. And Bagua is not like that at all. Bagua is actually designed to be in line with nature, meaning it helps your health. In other words, proper practice, you naturally get healthier and stronger. That's very different than a lot of martial arts that are primarily physical. Bagua, to me, is like a different level martial art, and it's really difficult to get that good at. But the process of going there, you automatically are healthier and stronger. And so, poor body mechanics can injure you, wear things away, and cause problems. And the spine, you know, developing a lot of power. So everybody from beginning learns dojang, right? Throwing the palm. Dojang is it's like do is a vibration. Zhang is the palm, vibrating palm, shaking palm. When you strike something, it creates a vibration. All right, that takes many years to develop. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. It just takes many years to develop the right coordination, the right relaxation, and the right structure behind it. So during the process, and when you talk about dragon back, there's a lot of spinal movement. So now issuing the power can create this vibration. And if the vibration doesn't go where you're striking, some of it can scatter. And some of it can get into your elbow, shoulder, spine. It can even get into your knee. You know, many times I corrected your knee placement, right? Everybody, you know, if you had a problem with your knee placement. In other words, we have a lot of different drills. They could be stationary, and you could be doing them in a way where you're twisting the body and you twist to your knee. Your knee is not supposed to twist. Twist needs to come from the hips. The hips are a ball and socket. The hips have a lot of twistability. And so the knees are a hinge. They need to be stable. The hips are very flexible. Power, the hips is basically like the handle of the whip. Now above the hips, you have your lower back. Your lower back has to be stable. The lower back is not designed for a lot of jerking power. And that's why I think it came up recently, actually, in a talk, maybe when I was at the dojo in person. I talked about crunches and sit-ups. I don't know, maybe you remember that. But crunches and sit-ups, you keep doing this, crunching your spine like this over and over, you know, crunching the body, it gets like a ball and back and ball, even small. You keep doing this, doing this, doing this. It's just a matter of time before the disc gives out. So science knows that that's a damaging exercise. You're having a lot of micro damage happen over time. It accumulates and eventually it gives out. And we have a student who actually lost their calf, half their calf muscle from doing that kind of stuff. He used to do hundreds a day or something. And he said one day he must have do about 8 to 10 and it just blew out one of his discs. And that's a fact. I know from the back specialists that they did experiments. So only can take so much. So that is directly related to issuing power. Because if that doesn't stabilize and there's a jerk, every time you strike, there's a rebounding power that comes back into your spine, you're hurting your back. And here's the sign that you're hurting your back. First, there's tightness. Why tightness? So your brain recognizes when something's wrong. Any part of the body, if you're hurting something, what it's going to do is it's going to try to stiffen it up to avoid the movement you're doing. And then as it stiffens up and you try to use it anyway, you're more likely to injure something. So a joint that's supposed to have a certain amount of space is being pulled too close together. Now that joint can wear out. That's another thing. So arthritis. And arthritis is inflammation of the joint. The bony changes are long-term chronic inflammation of the joint. So when the doctor looks at an x-ray and says, oh, you have all this arthritis. Well, actually, you have the bony changes from arthritis. It's the result of arthritis. And of course, those bony changes, something that's supposed to fit together no longer does because it's got this stuff sticking out and it's just constant irritation. You have more arthritis. But that arthritis was there many years before, probably from poor body mechanics, the way you're moving. So your frustration or lack of understanding is irrelevant. It's relevant for you because it makes you have a hard time. You understand that, right? Like mentally, you have a hard time. That's like me or any of you struggling with a new exercise. You're struggling, your frustration, your emotional response to it, you're getting aggravated, saying you suck. None of that helps anything. And that's what I mean by the Taoist approach. Mr. Miyagi goes and gets his fishing pole and walks out. So they smashed up his place, right? Get the fishing pole, whistle, walk out. You're having a hard time. You're getting on your own case. Go do something else for a minute. Or simply change your mind. Think of something better. Look at yourself that you're practicing when other people are not. Because I guarantee if you're regularly practicing, there are very few people that can match you. Very, very few people that can match you. This is kind of my personal approach. I never wanted anyone to be better than me because I didn't try hard enough. They'll never put the effort, they'll never put the time more than me. That was my attitude. Simple as that. And if you read a book talking about Kobe Bryant, he said the exact same thing. I think anybody who was great at anything, they had to have that attitude. Nobody's going to outwork me. Because if someone's outworking you, then they're going to get better than you eventually. And it wasn't a matter of competing with anybody. That was a competition with myself. That I never wanted to look back and regret that I didn't do the work to be that good. So I'm never satisfied. It's a good attitude. Have that attitude. Never satisfied. Never good enough. Never, never finished. Keep working on it. Keep trying to get better. And so it doesn't matter where you're at now. You're trying to get better. So if it helps, pat yourself on the back. You have to look in the mirror and say, I did good today. I tried hard. Not whether you got it or not. You did the work. You put the work in, and in time, it should come. But I told that whole thing about the spine because of how important it is for that one to be done properly. Without the structurally or sound root, without structural root to the power, so the power goes in the direction towards the target and not back into you, without that, you're striking yourself every time you strike. That doesn't work very well. Back in the 90s, I was especially fanatical, training 6 hours a day, 9 hours a day, if you include 3 hours teaching, leading every class, doing all this, doing everything physical. It was just endless energy, boundless energy I had. And I herniated three discs in my back. So this is what I mean by I know exactly what happens by practicing wrong. So I was fanatical training, and I was just doing so many strikes, 1,000 strikes a day. And all of a sudden one day I felt a pop. And I thought I heard something in my groin. And the lesson there was it took years to learn this lesson because I'd try to make a really long story short because it was over about 4 years. I literally became an acupuncturist because I didn't think my martial arts were going to be any good with this injury. It really messed me up. And so I went to acupuncture school. And at one point I was having this completely dysfunctional hip. Literally, I could be walking downstairs and fall down. I was doing stretching one day on the bars, and one of the students walked in. Mr. Picardi, he walked in. He remembers this moment because it was just him and I. He walks into me, and I said hello, and I went to bring my leg down, and it was like it wasn't my leg. It was the strangest thing. I had to literally hold my leg with my hands to get it off the bar, and then squat down to the ground to get it back to be mine again. So it was complete dysfunction, and there was no sign of any back problem. A teacher who was a chiropractor checked me out one day. I had a teacher teaching massage that I was learning, the Ama therapy, Asian massage, East Asian massage, came through Korea. And the teacher said, looking for someone to demonstrate the back treatment on. And I raised my hand. I said, yeah, I have a problem, but I didn't have pain. But that teacher told me I had something wrong. He felt around, and he eventually got me to take an X-ray and an MRI, and we found the disc. So I said, oh, I have no problem with my back. This doesn't make any sense. All my problems with my hip. I even spent thousands of dollars going to specialists, top doctors, and everybody said it was two different things. And then one day this teacher demonstrated on me and was doing this massage on my back. And for 3 days, my hip was completely normal. Like, light bulb went on. So it didn't matter what the doctors said, all these specialists, all the people I spent all this money with, they were all wrong. It was very obvious. Even though I had no problem with my back that I knew about, like I didn't feel any pain, I didn't feel even tightness. I was able to train, but I couldn't train anymore because of my hip, but I didn't have a back problem keeping me from training. After that, I just did Qigong on my back. And I did it religiously it was a year, because I had a teacher way back in the 80s, early 90s that told me that kind of exercise, you have to give yourself, don't even judge it for 6 months. And it would take about a year to fix whatever the problem is. So you got to be really patient and diligent. And after 6 months, it was about 80%, 85% better. It was practically gone, hardly bothered me at all. And after a year, it never came back again. So for what that's worth, I was doing power exercises, injured my back. Qigong corrected that. But do I want to see all the students we teach go through that? Anyone who trains hard go through that? No. You have to understand that you have to get it right in order to be able to practice hard. So that's why I told you the other day, you'll never be able to make power without hurting your back unless you correct that, right? So these kind of experiences teach a lot, and no teacher could have helped me with that because they didn't have that experience. That's just life, you can go to a doctor's, right? And one doctor is a specialist because they've been through the experience of seeing something that another doctor maybe never saw. Maybe they learned it in school, maybe they could read it in a book, but they don't have the experience to recognize what the person who has the experience with that particular problem can tell you. So that's why it's really important to get multiple opinions in something, and also more than one modality. Because if it's the same training with the same school, they're going to have the same answers most of the time. So show up, train hard, train right. Now, Miss Anagnostis, you know what the fourth one is. Patience, right? Takes how long it takes. Patience doesn't mean do it for a few weeks. When my back went out and I knew, I already had it in my mind, don't judge it for 6 months. Do you know how hard that is? Especially when I was completely obsessed with practice and I had to just back off and just focus on healing. I think when we let go of the stresses and have patience in our lives, as long as we're on the right road, we're going to get there. The inner game of tennis is all about your body knowing the movement. I think you were on Zoom when I was there live and I talked about the unconscious incompetence, right? So let me repeat it here. I forget who had created this, but it was like through psychology. Unconscious incompetence is doing something wrong and having no idea you're doing it wrong. You know, you go to open a jar and your shoulder's up in your ear. When your shoulder's up in your ear, your hand gets weaker, so you're weaker at opening that jar. But you're trying harder and you think this is helping you. That's unconscious incompetence. You have no idea what you're doing, basically. So somebody corrects you and says, you know, if you pull down your shoulder, your grip is stronger. So now you're still going to do this when you try to struggle with something, but maybe you start remembering. So that's called conscious incompetence, meaning you don't do it right, but at least now you're remembering, right? Eventually you have conscious competence. Okay, I got to open a jar, pull down my shoulder. Now you start remembering to do it right, but you have to focus or it pops up again. Conscious competence. Conscious competence. So we went from unconscious incompetence, don't know you're doing it wrong, nothing you can do. Conscious incompetence, you know now that you're doing it wrong. Conscious competence, you know how to do it right, but you have to focus on doing it right in order to do it right. What's the fourth one? The inner game of tennis. Anybody who hasn't read that, I highly recommend it. I read it in college in a tennis class, and it really has nothing to do with tennis. So when you do it right and you don't have to think about it, unconscious competence, and that is the mastery. When someone talks about mastery, it means you do things without having to think about it. And that's why it also came up recently, if you've seen the movie The Last Samurai. I always remember The Last Samurai when someone's watching him try to fight and they say, too many mind, too many mind. Yeah, too many mind is slowing you down. Your brain, your thinking is in the way of your skills. If you get in a real fight, there's no time to think. If you think, you're already late. Your skills have to be in your body, in your central nervous system. Your brain gets in the way, your thinking gets in the way, so no thought. That's why we try empty mind. Empty mind, just respond. I recently saw a movie that was dubbed. It was a Korean movie, The Swordsman. I don't know if anybody heard of that. It was really good. You have to read subtitles, you know. And you watch The Swordsman. So instead of focusing like this, so intent, you see when it's about to happen, when he's about to fight, you'll see him just, the eyes shift. So they did the part really well because that's what you have to do. You have to go into wide angle vision. You can't look at something. If someone pulls a knife on you, you stare at the knife, it's going to look huge and you're going to freak out. You have to gaze and just see everything. And you respond much faster that way. So I thought that movie was very well done, the way they show him go into this focus, like blank eyes. That's how my teacher was when he would show an application. He had that instinct, he had that mastery where he would move in on you and the eyes would look black, like he could kill you at that moment because it's almost like the human just left. Very interesting. When you train something so well, so long, perfected, so it's in your body and not even thinking is part of it anymore. Yeah, I mean, if it's a killer, yeah, it's like that. There's no thought. You have to do what you have to do, like a highly trained soldier. It's just survival. It's just get the job done. And that too is Taoist. You see? Because no animal in nature ever thinks about the killing if they have to kill. If it's a predator, they kill to eat. They don't kill for fun. They kill to eat. And they don't have any guilt about that because they have to survive. They have to eat. Any animal that fights over their, their hole in the ground, right? Their home. They fight and then they calm down after. They relax. They're not mad at that other animal anymore. If they survived, they calm down. They did what they had to do. That's the Taoist way. So why am I talking like this? When you practice, you have to have that kind of attitude. That's your battle. The battle is within. That's why I told you, anything difficult in coordination, I suggest you do it slower. I also suggest you close your eyes so that you feel the movement. How does the body make that movement most effectively, most efficiently? Eventually, the feeling will develop the mastery. And the repetition is what teaches your body. The body learns. It's like imprinting itself through repetition. It's the only way. You can't do 10 times, get frustrated, walk away. You'll never get it like that. You have to do repetition on a level that your body remembers, not your brain, not your mind. In the youth program, there's lots of forms. In the Bagua program, there's other forms. There's other things I learned. I mean, hundreds of forms. It's ridiculous. But everything I learned, I did it so many times that I literally could watch someone and I feel what you're doing. Or it's like trying to teach something. I know when it's wrong because it feels wrong. It's not, I don't remember here. My body remembers. And I try to think through it, and then I could screw it up because I don't practice all those forms all the time. It's impossible. A big advantage I have, how so much has gotten maintained, is because of teaching, having a school. Having a school, I've been teaching since, I don't know, 86. I started as an assistant that way too. So that's just as long, 30 something years. But the repetition, teaching people, of course, it gets more in my body than someone who does it, 1/100th of the times, just doing it for memory. It's like taking any test in education and cramming information just for the test. But after the test, if you took the same test the next day, you could fail because you didn't really understand and comprehend and digest. You just memorize through, what do you call that? Cramming, right? And I'm way guilty of that. School, just stay up all night, make sure, remember, and then get through the test, and then literally next day, 2 days later, forget it. I wouldn't remember. And that's very impractical knowledge. But for your practice in martial arts, if you really want to get what this is giving you, you need to internalize it. That's why I say the real battle, the real challenge, the real fight is in yourself, with yourself, overcoming yourself. And that voice that's saying you suck isn't helping anything. That voice that's giving you trouble, that's contributing to the frustration, isn't helpful. So that's where it's like, again, Mr. Miyagi, go with the fishing pole. Come back again later. What gives you the drive is seeing yourself mastering it one day. In other words, if you're clear on your goal or vision for yourself, that you really want to be good at this, you really want to get the full benefits, then whatever it takes to get there, you'll do. But the teacher needs to be able to present, needs to help you how to practice perfectly. Progress, no injuries. patience, and of course, the last one is what we're doing here. So show up, train hard, train right, patience, takes how long it takes, and the mind. Meditate every day. You want to be serious in that respect? My suggestion is 30 minutes twice a day. Oh my God, I can barely do 5 minutes. Okay, work up to it little by little. But that's showing up too. You want to be good at meditation, you need to go through those same 5 things. You got to show up to your place. You got to sit down. You got to do it. And you got to work it. And your body, your mind's ability to focus on one thing will improve, just like somebody lifting a weight and it gets heavier and heavier. So longer, deeper meditation is like a weightlifter lifting heavier and heavier weight, or having more endurance for a fitness person. Your mind needs practice. And in today's world, we're more distracted than ever. We have so many things we can put our attention on. So meditation is that much harder and that much more important. So honestly, I salute those who show up on Thursday night and give their time and actually try to get this aspect. Because if I had to choose one aspect that's most important, it would be this. Let me see if there's one more question. Hand up. Okay, Mr. Ahles. Yes, sir. Unmute.
I noticed in Qigong, when we're doing the dojang, it appears like the hand is automatically turning, whereas in the Bagua, it turns at the last minute. Whereas with the Qigong, it looks like it's turning before it starts extending outward.
Okay, this is a really good question. I have to mute you. Okay, so that's a good question, because that's understanding your practice properly. Okay, so when you're doing power, a spiral, a twist, makes you stronger. It's been shown that a person, let's say you're doing a push-up, if you grab the floor, which you can't really do because the floor is in the way, you grab the floor and try to twist, which again, you can't twist because you're stuck on the floor, you will get stronger. So a person who can't do a push-up, or maybe you're at a rep you can't finish, if you really start focusing on twisting, you'll get stronger and you'll get up. And these are understandings of how the body works. It's a yin-yang changing principle applied to making more power, more strength. And this was known somehow many years before there was science. I mean, it's just people's practice figured that stuff out. So when you strike, in fact, I could talk about a boxer. Boxers would hit and twist. They figured that out too. And they could cut somebody with that. They hit and they cut. So the twisting to make even more power and more damage. So always, when you twist, it's more powerful than if you don't twist. But that doesn't mean if you had a fight, you're always going to twist, you know. It just means that's always more powerful. So you practice that way. It's like you defense here and then you twist to strike. That spiraling energy will give you much more power. In Qigong, you are working more on structure. You can imagine like you're pushing something heavy, for example, or how the body can expand to push the hand out. You're developing that structure that supports the power. That's about all I need to say about that. Make sense? Yeah. This is why in Bagua, or in internal style, there's the two sides, fast and slow. And traditionally, they would start with Qigong, always slow first. But in this country, we make it Kung Fu side and Qigong side, right? But that's really just the fast and the slow. And really, you should develop Qigong first so that the body's ready to start making power. So you learn the basics in the Kung Fu already, but if you're doing both like you're supposed to, then the slow side is teaching the body posture, proper posture, learning to relax. When you relax, you're going to get more chi and blood flow. You're going to feel what it really is to relax. You cannot make good speed or power without relaxation. You have to have the right relaxation and then the right tension at the right time. And that takes inner understanding and coordinated with being able to take that to speed and power. So slow with detail first, right? Slow with detail. Then you try to speed up gradually, right? And then you try to add power. So we would be slow, slow with power, then fast, fast with power. What's next? Beginners don't really know what's next because that's what we start to introduce from the next level. When we start focusing on all the footwork, which is really what Bagua is famous for. Bagua is famous for an old ancient Taoist exercise of walking in the circle, but also footwork in general, meaning changing your position in space to not be where the problem is, to avoid through stepping, through footwork. And so slow, slow with power, fast, fast with power. Then you do start over, slow with stepping. Slow with power with stepping. And then it's like, then the whole body comes together. Hand, body, step becomes one unit. So in the beginning, everything you learn, whenever you learn a new strike, it's stationary. So slow can always be Qigong, simplified, how the body works. Okay, let's go to meditation.